All right, Charles Hammer. Here we go. Three, two, one. Welcome back to the Soundwaves from the Sea podcast. I am not Charles Hammer. I'm Owen Murray. Standing in for our buddy Chuck. With me is Michael Martinez. We're going to break down Saturday's win over Austin FC. Get you a little bit of insight into the Crew game on Sunday. Thanks so much for being with us, Mike. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, dude. It was a good win, I think. We'll talk about it a little bit.
Oh yeah,
And we have some questions around one player, but I think it was good to see them. I remember last time we were on here, we were talking about we just want to see some of that intensity. And I feel like it was there.
and that we
I don't
did.
think
Oh yeah,
it was good, and that made me happy. I was glad the Club World Cup, which I have stopped watching, um, has gone to waste. The Man City game was tough last night.
yeah. I had to stop watching. I went to bed, and I'm glad I did.
It was it was tough, but what wasn't tough was that Sounders game. I mean, we can look back a little bit. A 2-0 win over Austin FC here in Seattle. Jesus Ferreira scores in first half stoppage time. Danny Musovski adds another with a nice solo goal assist from Ferreira on the other side of the half. Only kind of blemish there is a second yellow for Reed Baker Whiting right at the end of the game. Tough to see that he got the start in this one. What's the big takeaway?
Biggest takeaway is that Jesus Ferreira might be a starter for the Sounders? Question mark. Depends who
Is
you
he
ask.
really?
Depends who you ask. I'm just gonna go jump right into it. He got himself in a really good positions playing in that half space. Off that right wing, which we actually all talked about this before, when he
Yeah.
moves inside more and takes over that space right between like a typical winger spot and where Rusnak was, he he gets on the ball a lot more. He finds himself in really good attacking positions, and he looked a lot more dangerous than he has, honestly, close to all season. And
I mean,
obviously, maybe like
it's
you
a
said,
low
like to the
bar, right?
beginning, it's a very low bar. He got the goal and assist in this game. But besides that, I do want to say it's going to sound bad. He did not really have that great of a game stat wise. The stats were
Yeah.
not in his favor at all, especially when it comes like to his passing and his touches. He only had 3 touches inside the box, which for an
One
attacking
one
like
shot, one shot, which
one
became the goal.
one shot, one goal. Which honestly, that goal was here's my one swear word. It was a fucking banger. He just blasted that volley after the cross from Paul Rothrock. Like
Yeah, Paul Rothbard did a lot of work on that goal. It was very nice assist.
he really did. And honestly, like Jesus Ferreira's assist for Danny Musovski, which is honestly the two most hated players on this Sounders roster right now, besides Nuhu. For them to link up was iconic. But his pass to Musovski, that through ball was absolutely perfect. Just for Musovski to be able to run on there and then just to quick little dribble and slot it right in. Ferreira, he had himself a good night. Stat wise, wasn't very favorable, but you know what? Goal and assist, you can't complain.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I was really thinking, hey, this is a great Jesus Ferreira game until he was getting that goal. I wasn't. My takeaway was not going to be that. Hey, I know he didn't score, but Jesus played really well. Yeah, I mean, 75 minutes, a goal and an assist from one shot, 76% passing, the one chance created, like a quarter goal worth of XG and XA. Like it's not like this is where I struggle with calling him a starter because like he made the most of some really good chances, but I didn't. The bucket was not overflowing with like creation. It was not wow. Like I know even though he only scored one goal, we really should have had three. Um,
Yeah,
I struggle with calling him a starter, and I know we kind of decided that Kent and Rothrock should have been the winger starters. And how like surprised were you to not see that on Saturday?
I was shocked, honestly, especially Ferreira's performance against PSG, and honestly his performance in the whole Club World Cup. I thought he was really disappointing. Um, and I think every single fan, even people like in my DMs on Blue Sky and on Twitter, were like, "Hey, why isn't Ryan Kent starting?" And I said, "Be like, I was just as shocked as everyone else was." But I kind of had to eat my own words because obviously goal and assist
Yeah,
numbers speak
I,
for
I I
themselves.
feel like you can't forget though, like what Ryan Kent has brought to this team. And I thought he looked really good when he came on. I think for Paul
He really
Rothrock,
did.
um, that's something I think you can't forget because yeah, Jesus Ferreira did look good against this team, but I think I still kind of am of the opinion that Ryan Kent brings a little bit more. Did Brian have any insight on that post game?
Not necessarily. No, he was just kind of praising the players a lot, especially for their post Club World Cup. There was no post Club World Cup fatigue with this team. Like, everyone did their jobs really well. Everyone except for Reed Baker Whiting, but we'll get to him in a little bit. But honestly, I do also want to highlight Danny Musovski right now. He obviously
Talk about him.
he got himself that goal. I've been very high on him all season since Jordan Morris has been injured. But I just feel like this spot is still his to lose at this point. I feel like the Sounders team looks a lot more cohesive and a lot stronger with a typical number nine like Danny Musovski sitting up top. I don't know how you feel about that. I know Jordan Morris is our DP number nine, and I feel like it's going to turn to what happened last year with Raul Ruidiaz as our DP9 was once he stopped scoring, the next guy's going to come in. And I feel like right now, Danny Musovski should be the starting number nine until he stops scoring.
Yeah, I think really what I took away from the Danny Musovski goal was that he drove really well in behind. I think what we talked about with Jordan Morris is that he stretches the defense, which is I mean it's not groundbreaking analysis, but that's something that the Sounders struggle to do. Like they have a lot of wingers who like to get the ball at their feet and dribble. They'll drop very deep to try to get the ball. There's not a lot of guys in this team who stretch the line. So I think there's still a place for Jordan Morris in this team because of how kind of unique that play style is. I think it could be kind of a system where you look at, hey, what team are we playing? Are we going to need to break a lot? Versus I do like the idea of Danny Musovski against a team like Austin, where the Sounders once again had a ton of possession. I can't remember the exact. I want to say like 57 ish, 56
56, yeah.
percent of the ball in this game. Danny Musovski is a guy who can really take the ball to feet and turn with it. I like him as an outlet. You see when he gets that ball from Ferreira into his feet, he can push, and he's enough to take these two center backs who are not bad center backs and put
Mm-hmm.
them on the back foot. I don't necessarily think Jordan Morris does that to that level. So I think it could be a situation where you look at it and you say, hey, like what is this game?
I definitely feel like the Sounders should be able to build off this game for sure, especially going into the next game against Columbus. And honestly, they have a tough stretch. You got Columbus. I mean, right after that, right after Club World Cup, you have tough couple stretch of games, and then you go right into the cash grab that is the Leagues Cup against all Liga MX teams. So I think this game can be used as a catalyst to push forward.
Yeah,
They can
absolutely.
keep this energy going. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Sounders are missing a lot of players in this game. We were talking about strikers. Brendan Vasquez was nowhere to be found. And a lot of that was because of who was playing at center back, and his name is Alex Roldan, the Swiss Army knife. Um, that was an unbelievable performance, especially kind of playing next to a guy who likes to push up in Kalani Kosaranzi, who we've been wanting to see. I thought he was okay. He looked a little like less than confident at times, which is not something that I've expected to see from him. But Alex Roldan was unbelievably confident. He was maybe one of the best performers of this game outside of Jesus Ferreira. What do you see?
Oh, I loved Alex's performance. His positioning in the past, I've been very critical on his positioning as a right back, like moving, staying too high up the pitch, being out of position, going inside more. But as almost like a stay-at-home center back and letting Reagan roam a little bit as well at times, it didn't seem unnatural to him, which I was honestly surprised. I thought the Sounders were going to ship a couple goals because of Alex's lack of defending prowess, to say, for lack of a better word. But honestly, he was super solid. Stat wise, like obviously stats are shit. We don't want to talk about it, but like as a center back, he got 81 passes this entire match. He basically played the Jackson Reagan role in that. And his defending, he didn't even have to do any tackles because, I mean, like I said, Brandon Vasquez wasn't doing anything, but he still did a really good job. He had 5 recoveries, 6 clearances, and he even had a couple headers, which for a guy who's 5'9", you don't expect him to 5'9" center back to go through and head the ball out. But I don't know. I think that it's good to have a player like Alex Roldan who can slot in anywhere across that back line and hell even the midfield.
Now, I'm curious too how this looks if the Sounders were ever to rotate into a back three, because there's a lot of players there who maybe look good as an outside center, but we've talked a lot about how Nuhu would look, and we can talk a little bit about what the center back core looks like right now. But like, could that be an option? I know he's obviously a player who we know can play anywhere, but would that be a legitimate idea if you because this midfield is going to get a little bit weird if and when Obed Vargas leaves.
I, as much as I want to say yes, I don't think it's a viable option. to have him as a center back. We have a very strong center back core with Jackson Reagan, John Bell, Nuhu, Yamar, Kim Keehee. Like I think Alex Rodon is still best suited as a right wing back.
Yeah.
We've seen him get into those high positions right on top of the box and just ripping shots and ripping crosses like it's nothing. And he's such an important attacking outlet for this team that I think moving him back a line essentially would just
Yeah.
be more detrimental to the way we attack.
I'm curious. I do think you're right. I'm curious though if there's any if that changes with the emergence of Kalani Kosaranzi because we saw him in this game. We had talked about how much we wanted to see him in the Club World Cup, and we didn't really get that chance. What you see out of him in this game, and is there a real chance that he takes over Alex's spot at right back?
I think he was solid. He wasn't bad by any means. He wasn't very as confident as we've seen him in the past. I feel like the lack of playing time in the Club World Cup might have just like hurt his ego just a little bit. Because I mean, every player, no matter what, they want to be on the pitch. They want to play as much as they can, and when they're not playing, they're sensitive. They're sensitive boys, and that's okay. But I think that Rienzi is the future, and I think if there's an opportunity to say this will sound crazy, but if there's opportunity to move Alex Roldan on, and he gets an offer somewhere because of performances like this, because of the decent performances we saw in the Club World Cup, then I wouldn't be too upset with having Rienzi as our starting right back, or
I mean,
wing
yeah,
back if we move to a back three.
yeah. I mean, the other way to look at it is that he has a great MLS veteran to learn from. I think that's a huge part of this, and
Mm-hmm.
we've talked a lot about how much a lot of these guys, like how the Sounders do a great job of having young players be able to learn kind of from a mentor. We've seen it with Vargas and Christian Roldan. If they ever signed a striker, he could learn from Jordan Morris, one of the most prolific MLS forwards. Guys, every guy that's gone played under Stephen Fry has gone somewhere else and been a starter. Speaking of, we did get to see a little bit of Stephen Cleveland back this weekend. No minutes for him, but it's always great to see him back. In Seattle, he's a
Mm-hmm.
great guy.
And all the
Um,
players were so happy to see him too. I saw like from like the press box, everyone was like all happy to see him. They're hugging, clapping for him. It was a great time.
yeah, well, I mean, we touched on a couple things that maybe didn't go great in this game. Is there anything that really stuck out to you in particular?
Two big things actually. So in the final 10 minutes of the game, I noticed we did make quite a few subs. Obviously, Jesus Ferreira, Danny Musovski came off. It was nice to see Jordan Morris come back on and just get some legs going. He only had one touch in the final 10, 15 minutes. And then I feel like the Sounders were sitting back so much that Austin had put so much pressure on the Sounders defense. Bakari on the right wing was terrorizing Baker Whiting until he got both of his yellow cards in those final 15 minutes. Um, I just didn't like seeing how much pressure they were allowing Austin to give them. Like, I feel like even though you're 2-0 up, you're at home, you want to at least play all the way to the final whistle. Keep that momentum going. And then the next thing was Reed Baker Whiting's performance. Everyone's been clamoring for him since the Club World Cup, or even before, for him to take over the left back spot for Nuhu. And this match kind of showed that he is not ready to be a starting caliber left back.
What needs to change?
It's just his positioning. He needs to get more solid at defending, which he has his moments where he does a really good job getting intercepting the ball or a couple good tackles here and there, but it's not consistent enough to be a starting level left back. And his decision making, that that slide tackle that he did to get that final red card. I don't know if you saw it, but the way he comes in from behind and he flicks both his legs up and just takes out Bakari, ball nowhere in sight. He knew immediately he was going to get carded, and it just wasn't a very smart play. And obviously we can talk about everyone says Nuhu does really dumb plays, but that felt like just inexperience from Reed. And I
Yeah,
think obviously he can grow from it, but he's not a defender. I've been shouting that for years now, but I don't know.
yeah, it's tough then. I guess when you think about kind of the long term solution at left back, because a lot of places the Sounders do have a long term future. Maybe the only couple of places like would be left back and striker and maybe goalkeeper. Um, is there an immediate need to go find a long term solution? I know there's guys around. There's Cody Baker who maybe has disappeared. Travian Sousa who we haven't really seen a ton of on the left or the right. Do you feel like there's a need to go find somebody to replace Nuhu, or is that something that can kind of sit on the back burner?
Oh, I think we should definitely put that on the back burner. Nuhu still the best one-on-one left back in the league when it comes to defending. I think that we should be. I feel like Cody Baker. I like Travis Sousa. I like his potential. But I think Cody Baker should be next in line for that starting left back role, as
And I
opposed to
mean,
Reed Baker Whiting.
and we can talk a little bit about Leagues Cup and how much that kind of gives yet again another opportunity to see some players. I'm curious what that'll look like because Club World Cup there it was the starting lineup a lot of the time. The only rotation really was that those wingers, and those we feel are mostly all starting level wingers now. If we're deeming Jesus Ferreira a starter,
Yeah.
um,
I
just
actually want to
other
bring this
stuff
up
for
to you.
oh please.
Speaking of that, do you think that the Sounders should use Leagues Cup as an opportunity to see these younger players come in and try them out in different positions? Or do you think they should still go in with their full starters like the Club World Cup?
I think it's a tough spot. I know last year, what we got from Brian Schmetzer was that we're absolutely going to go. I think the Sounders, if they play as we saw them in these last couple of weeks, that you always have a shot at winning it. You always have a shot. We know they can beat Mexican teams, and that's what it's going to take. I do think they go into this with their starting lineup. I think it would be curious to see, maybe one or two players. Maybe it's not a starter, but that maybe you give 30 minutes to Travian Sousa because who's tired and he's maybe going to make some mistakes. Maybe you do, call a guy up from Defiance and give him a couple minutes. There's a couple guys that I do want to see Yusuf and Ome eventually. Maybe it's not this season. That number 10 could be another spot where you don't have a long term solution. Like we were mentioning, I think it would be curious to see what this midfield looks like without Obed Vargas because that's going to be the reality sooner rather than later. I think you're going to get a majority starting lineup though. I think this is a competition the Sounders rightly believe they have a shot at, and it would be unfortunate to see them really not go for it.
That's fair.
Just a couple other details from this game. Stephen Fry made his 999th save. He only made one. So his next save will put him as, I believe, the second player ever after the illustrious Nick Raimondo to make 1,000 saves for a single club. Sounders have still only lost one match at home. Shout out to Sounders Communications for pulling these stats here. Yeah, we did not see Nuhu and Jonathan Bell. Ferreira got his 8th team leading assist. That's something that I feel like is a little bit underrated because we've really been down on him a lot, but he does lead the team. Eight is a lot of assists.
Well, it depends. Do you
Especially a
count
half season?
secondary assists?
But this is counting half assists. You're right. You're correct.
Okay.
Jesus Ferreira, half assist merchant. I don't have the numbers on this. Albert Rusnak becomes the 13th player in MLS history to hit the 65-65 club. And that's a tough one because I know a lot of guys are down on Albert Rusnak, but he puts up numbers. And I think that has to be recognized.
I still don't understand the Albert Rusnak discourse. He pulls the strings for this team, and yet everyone still seems to hate him so much.
I think he can be a frustrating player sometimes because you don't see what he does. And then when he has a chance to maybe take a free kick or really have an influential moment, you only notice that he doesn't do something. You notice when he fails. It's confirmation bias, I guess, if that's what makes sense. But he is one of those players who can just kind of disappear into the machine, but he really does make it tick.
Actually, I want to talk to you also about Pedro de la Vega for a hot moment. He came on along with Jordan Morris in that 75th minute, and he's decent, lively in the attack, solid passing here and there, but he still a second game in a row now where he doesn't get the start. He's our $7 million DP. He's getting paid nearly $2 million a year to start on the bench for most games. What do you do with Pedro de la Vega?
The $7 million question, right? Because you're not going to get your money back right now. Mm-hmm. And so I think I do think unless you find some sort of deal that you can really get something you feel is good, if you can get a player in exchange that you feel will really help this team, and I don't know what that is. Maybe that is a central midfielder, maybe that is a young striker. Then I think it's not the right decision to move on from him. But I think that of course the question is it's getting louder now. It's hey, You've been here for a couple of years. It's time to start performing.
Agreed.
He's in a tough spot. I don't know, where are you on this?
Yes. I love the kid. He's so talented. He brings us like this intense energy when he comes on the pitch, but it's just like you said, if you're not delivering, it's it's gonna be that time sooner rather than later.
And this is the difference between him and Albert Rusnak because they can both kind of disappear for a little bit, but he doesn't pull the strings. He will kind of fall away from the team. It's tough to explain, but he Albert Rusnak performs in a way that Pedro de Vega doesn't because he's not integral to this team. He's frosting on top. He's not the flower.
Do you think that if Pedro de Vega was not a DP, we'd be having a different conversation?
I think so. I think of course whenever you sign a player like him, like a frosting and a sprinkles type player, like you're always looking at them to add something. You're not looking at them for a minimum performance. You're not looking at them
Hmm.
for when you sign a creative player like this, you're not looking for them to just work okay. You're looking for them to add something special. And I think when the Sounders do sign a winger, that's we were excited with what we saw from Paul Arriola because he did drive. He did take guys on 1-on-1, not because he completed 80% of his passes and looked pretty solid when he had to drop into defense. Um, I do think it's a bigger conversation because of how much they're paying him and how much they did pay for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can turn on to this crew game. Sounders get back John Bell and Nuhu off red card suspensions, who they didn't have, like we mentioned, for the Austin game.
Thank
That
God.
makes this lineup a little bit easier. It does raise some questions, like who starts at right back. Crew are a very solid team. Sounders and the Crew have gone back and forth a little bit here. They just pulled off a big win over Philadelphia Union on Sunday Night Soccer in Columbus. Where do you see this Crew team at? Are the Sounders ready to take them on?
I think right now because the crew are missing a small handful of players due to international duty, which fingers
Mm.
crossed that the U.S. beat Guatemala tomorrow, so that Max Arfson, who's in really good form right now, doesn't come back for Sunday's game against the Sounders. But I think this current version of Columbus, the Sounders, I think can hang with them. I think that with Columbus not having a recognized number, like an actual starting level number nine, I think the Sounders can use that to their advantage. Use that to sit higher up the pitch and really drive at Columbus's defense.
Yeah, I'm curious too because this is a team. Whenever you play Darlington Nagby, you know that the midfield's going to be important. Um, what do you like? How do you deal with him? Because the Sounders have seen him a lot. Brian Spencer knows this guy very well. Christian Roldan knows him very well. What's the plan and how important is kind of taking Nagby out of this game?
I think if you let Christian do his thing, like he has been doing all season, playing as like that deep lying six, deep lying playmaker role, I think naturally he's going to attract a player like Nagby. They're going to be clashing against each other in that midfield, and it's going to allow Obed Vargas and Albert Rusnak to kind of have freedom in that midfield. I think
Yeah,
that if everything plays well like it's supposed to, Obed Vargas is going to have a massive, massive game against Columbus.
absolutely. And then the other thing, kind of, I want to touch on here is that we know Columbus doesn't have two center backs. They play with kind of that back three, back five kind of look, and the Sounders have struggled against teams that have played that. It but I think the important thing to recognize is that it's a little bit different because Vancouver sits very deep. A team like Minnesota doesn't want the ball, and that's where the Sounders have struggled. Is that what it's going to look like against the Crew, or are they going to try to push and possess the ball?
Oh, I think Columbus is going to push and try and possess the ball just as much as the Sounders are going to do. Nance is still arguably the best manager in this league, and he has this team playing in this system that performs well against every single team, regardless of who's on the pitch for them. I think we're going to see Columbus sitting high. I think what's going to it's going to happen. Both teams are going to be sitting so high against each other that most of the battles going to be right in that midfield with that Christian Roldan and Darlington Nagby going at each other. That it's either going to be a goal fest or it's going to be nil-nil.
How important? I think the way to talk about this too is that the second goal is probably the most important one.
Yes.
If there is a second goal, because you're either getting 2-0 or you're getting 1-1, and I think that really changes how you look at this. Because if one of these teams goes up, they do have the ability to lock it down, especially when you look at a team like the Sounders. And I know that might not be exactly what you want because we had that conversation about how the Sounders really did kind of cede possession to Austin on the back half of the game on Saturday night once they went up 2-0. But I think that will be the really important goal. Of course it is. It always is. But how important kind of is that second goal? Am I right or am I talking crazy?
Oh no, you're 100% right. I think whoever gets that second goal is winning the game. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there it highlight a couple players. We talked about Max Arfston. He didn't start this last game, but that will be a player to watch. He looked strong for us. He was a player that Sounders were linked with in the offseason. Did not obviously sign him. Diego Rossi is back. Daniel Gazdag is back. Sean Zawadzki and Marrera are really good kind of pairing there in that back three. I think that'll be tough. Who's the striker that you want to see in this game? Is this a Danny Musovski game or is this a Jordan Morris game?
I think it all depends on Jordan Morris's fitness, to be honest. I think if Jordan Morris is 90 minutes match fit, he should start against this team. So I think he could really go at Marrera and Zawadzki really with
Yeah.
the way those two play and the way Jordan plays. I think there'll be a really good battle. If not, I think Danny Musovski will be serviceable. I don't want to see Ferreira at the nine.
Hmm.
I think that would be a mistake, and I think that would just be detriment to the Sounders.
Do you want
In
to
a
see
way
him
they
out wide though? Can you is there any way
not in
you
this
can't start him?
not in this game.
No.
I know I call him almost a starter at the beginning of the episode, but I think this is not the right game to start him on the wing with the way that Columbus plays. I think you want to have that Ryan Kent and Paul Rothrock, the way they both attack the wings and attack those wing backs. I think it's going to be crucial to how the Sounders win this game.
Yeah, I think this is a really important game, kind of not even because it's the Sounders and the Crew, just because of where it falls in the schedule. We talked about how important it was to come out of Club World Cup strong, and they did that. But this, you were mentioning how this is a really important period for the Sounders. It falls in the middle of Club World Cup and Leagues Cup, and you're right in the middle of that table. That was a big 6-pointer against Austin. Sounders rise up here to fifth, 1 point behind the Timbers. They've got a game in hand on a couple of these teams. But they're still 10 points back of San Diego in first, who's won their last 4 games. What does success look like kind of in this period before Leagues Cup for the Sounders? Does it have to be points in every game?
I think what the way Minnesota, Vancouver, and San Diego are playing, I think that it should be at least a point every game until the Leagues Cup break. I think the Sounders need to keep this momentum going, building from this win against Austin, and they just need to take advantage of every single point they're going to get. I don't think they're going to win the West or even get second place in the West. They're not going to get home field advantage. Vancouver and San Diego are just too good this year. But as long as they can maintain that like third to like sixth place spot, I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, just to recap what the Sounders do, they have Columbus on Sunday at 2 o'clock here. Then they go to Kansas City for the next game, Saturday, July 12th, play host Colorado and San Jose. Colorado, that one's in midweek, and then head to Atlanta before they play in Leagues Cup. Those seem like winnable games. A lot of those teams are teams that Sounders, not struggle against, but they kind of have a boogie team. It's always tough to go play in Colorado. Kansas City, we know, is a tough game. It's a Heritage Cup game against San Jose. Does that factor into this at all when you're looking at what you can get?
Not necessarily. I'll be honest, at San Jose, they're so like up and down, especially with the way they play this year, man. It's just I think this should I said this when we first played them, it's an easy 3 points. It's not an easy 3 points when you're playing a Heritage Cup game against San Jose. But I don't know. I'm not too worried about these games. Although everyone should be watching out for that Wednesday midweek game on the 16th. There's going to be a special announcement.
Oh, well, we'll keep you posted on that one. Yeah, Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, man. Big win for the Sounders. Big win. I think this was a tough spot, and it's really important to get that dub. Just because if this is an L pod, man, it's tough that you're getting into a spot where you really start to need wins. This season feels a little bit different because the Sounders have performed at the start of the season. You don't really need that July kick. That's the point. Does this feel weird?
Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel right. I'm so used to like being so down on the Sounders until July hits when I'm like, oh, we look better than we have in seasons past at this point.
All right. Well, we will be back with you after that next game. Michael Martinez, I'm Owen Murray. Till the next time we see you, do everything you can to make today a great day. See you next time.
Hey Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey. So where are you going to watch all of the Sounder away games this year?
Away games for the Sounders. Well, since Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that's a great idea. Go Sounders. Hope we see you all here.